Welcome to the show. I'm your host, Ron Stevens. This is Rock the Boat right here on Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com. I'm your host for the next 2 hours. And it is the 8th of April, 2018. And I still got snow in my yard. Which is nuts. Our yard should be full of flowers by now instead of full of snow. But hey, it's global warming. I don't know how people even ever, I have no idea how people got caught up in that nonsense. But, reality's banging on your door now. So you've hugged the lie long enough. Get it through your thick skulls that man-caused global warming does not and will never exist. Period. Now, just to get this show started, well, that freaked me out for a phone call coming in. There was a tragic accident out in Saskatchewan. The Humboldt Broncos team, over half of it seems to be wiped out. There's 29 people on the bus. 15 of them are no longer with us. Extremely tragic accident. Condolences to all the families and friends who have lost a lot in this accident. And I've been trying to figure out what happened in this accident. And now it's kind of looking like the semi blew the stop sign. It's still kind of sketchy here. And I don't know why it's taken so long. The crash happened, I believe, on Friday. And today's Sunday. And the truck driver is alive and not injured. But they seem to be having a problem figuring out what happened here. RCMP say multiple factors under consideration in Bronco team's bus crash. And Friday night, yeah. So today's Sunday afternoon. Well, it's still morning in Saskatchewan, I guess. But, the truck driver survived without injury. Why don't you just ask him what happened? I don't get that part. I don't understand what this cloud of secrecy is about. But it does look like that's what happened, because back down here, there's, on that corner, there's still white crosses at that corner from 20 years ago. Apparently some family from Alberta was rolling down that road and missed a stop sign and ran into a grain truck and wiped out all 6 people that were in the vehicle that hit the grain truck. So it's not that it hasn't happened before. They've put up 2 stop signs, 2 big stop signs, flashing lights, but apparently people still blow that stop sign for some oddball reason. And it happens. It happens. And I think one of the things that happens is when you're out in these county roads and there's very little traffic, it can lead to some very nasty accidents. I know some people who have died on these, not in Saskatchewan, but here in Ontario on these county roads, where people aren't used to traffic on the roads. And they tend to say, well, I'll take a look, I don't see anybody coming, but there's trees or something right up to the corner, and they don't stop, and they end up T-boning somebody or getting T-boned. Um, they're actually, I think some of these county roads are actually more dangerous than the main arteries, because the main arteries, people tend to pay more attention, hopefully, to what they're doing. So I know me personally, every time I get near a crossroad out in the country, I pay very particular attention to these side roads, because you could go down that road 100 times and never meet anybody at that corner, and you go down it once and you're not paying attention, and it gets ugly fast. So anyways, I guess we'll find out exactly what happened in the accident, but it does sound like, at this point anyways, that the truck driver blew the stop sign, took the front end of the bus off, spun it around big time, and 15 people are now not with us. And that is a terrible tragedy. Now, I don't know where. Somebody put up a U fund or whatever, and last I saw was a day or so ago, and I think it was in 18 hours they raised $1 million with a goal of $2 million, and I'm not sure which U fund that is or fund outfit it is, but I'm sure people on blogs and that will know where it is. And if you want to donate a little bit to these folks whose lives have absolutely been completely shattered. I mean, it's one thing to have somebody killed in an accident, but have most of the team, it was 29 on the bus, 15 are dead, and there's some that are severely injured who may or may not make it, so it could rise. So when you lose 15 out of 29 people, that is a super tragedy. And but it's happened, and there's nothing anybody can do about it. One of the things that irritates me a lot, when you have a bad accident like this, and this is a horrific accident. I mean, most of the people on the bus were young people, and had their lives snuffed out in an instant. And that's how precarious life is. You got to be careful, because in less than a blink of an eye, everything can go bad on you. But everybody's pouring everything out to these families, and everybody, I'm sure, is talking about this accident. And as horrific as it is, and as sad as it is, as devastating to the families as it is, and is going to be for a very, very long time, and you have this outpouring of emotion, which is what one would expect from moral people. But at the same time, the moral men and women of this land sit quietly by as they watch our nation being slowly, systematically murdered. And say nothing or do nothing about it. And that, to me, is a much bigger tragedy than what happened on the highway out in Saskatchewan. I don't understand it. I understand the outpouring of emotion from across the country. You know, people pouring out their feelings and getting caught up in this tragedy and donating money to the families and that, which is much appreciated. But the same people doing that are afraid to speak up about the demise of their nation. And that makes no sense to me whatsoever. I don't understand why the moral men and women in this nation huddle in fear. I mean, their gut's telling them there's something very bad going on, but they don't want to talk about it. They want to discuss it. They don't want to believe it, even though they know it's true. It really kind of boggles my mind, because our nation is being murdered, systematically murdered. And you would think that would make people angry. But instead, it makes them fearful for some reason or another. And if you continue to live in fear, then you're an accessory to a crime, which is the murder of our nation. So if you're not stepping up and speaking out, then you're an accessory to a crime. You gotta get over this fear thing. You know, we go to the hockey games and we cheer for a team. Then we go home and live in fear, not wanting to speak out. Very difficult. Now, the other thing that I find difficult is that I can't go through a news site without running into, it's almost impossible now. If I go through the news across the country, for me to get through a day without, something to do with child abuse or some police officer shooting somebody. And it seems to me that more and more the so-called authorities are the ones that are involved in this stuff. That doesn't seem to be the average man or woman that's caught up in this stuff. It seems to be more and more the so-called authority. Teachers, preachers, police, politicians, lawyers. Those that basically control your lives seem to be the names or the groups of people that keep coming up who are causing the problems. And that should be a heads up to anybody. Let's see, a diplomat has been arrested by the Vatican for viewing child porn in Windsor. That's a diplomat from the Vatican. But this stuff, you just read this stuff all the freaking time. But people don't, I don't know what it is. I don't understand why they can't tag all this stuff together. Now, here's another story that irritates the hell out of me. Windsor, Ontario wants to make it easier for residents to get around without a car. Okay? So this is going on everywhere. What's not sustainable? Well, your car is not sustainable. And what's not sustainable about your car? I mean, the emission levels are down to almost nothing. So what's unsustainable about your car? What's unsustainable about your car is your freedom of movement. That's the problem with the car. Because you can go places that you want to go to, not where the city or the authorities want you to go. The city of Windsor is rolling out a new plan to make roads more friendly for walking, cycling, and other forms of human-powered transportation. Now, anybody that's done any research has read about this 20 years plus ago. Like I keep saying, they write it all down, nobody reads it, so they keep moving the program forward because you don't get up and say, bite me. Officials have launched an 18-month process called Walk Wheel Windsor, which will help develop a vision of what safe and convenient active transportation looks like over the next 20 years. The city has launched an online survey open until June 29th to find out what encourages people to use active mobility options. Now, you see, they always put their plans out 20, 30, 40, 50 years later or down the road, i.e. global warming. They're telling you that in the next 100 years, the temperature could rise 2 degrees centigrade, and that will just destroy the planet. Now, anybody stupid enough to believe something like that needs to, I don't know, do some reassessment of themselves. How in the hell, I mean, think about it. Scientists suggest, which is a form of hypnotism, look it up. Suggest is to hypnotize through suggestion to get you to believe you're a chicken, just like the hypnotists do in their shows. So science suggests shit to you, and you don't question it. You don't investigate it. You don't research it. And they keep telling you the same garbage over and over and over and over and over and over and over again. Doesn't matter where you go, you run into the same message. And then you succumb to the suggestion. In other words, you've been hypnotized into believing you're a chicken. Or that if you don't give up all of your man rights given to you by your creator, and submit to these psychopaths who think they are the only men, and they have dominion over you, and they do because they keep hypnotizing you into the most ridiculous things. And again, one of my favorites was the eggs and butter thing, which had everybody scrambling to the doctors to get their cholesterol checked. so they wouldn't die of a heart attack from eating eggs and butter. And then 20 years later or more, the same idiots that hypnotized you into believing science suggests that eating eggs and butter are full of bad cholesterol, will clog up your veins, and you could die. Ah! Run to your doctor, people. Run to your doctor. Get your cholesterol checked. And remember, stay away from butter and eggs. Try this. Margarine. Of course, no animal will eat margarine, but hey, you're not that bright. So we put little sayings on it to suggest to you that, well, it's just like butter. Just like butter? Hey, honey, it's just like butter. And it's supposed to be good for your cholesterol, too. Well, we better get some margarine. Then you got people running around saying, you're eating butter? What are you, nuts? Didn't you hear the news? If you eat butter, you have a heart attack in the morning. You better get to your doctor and get some cholesterol pills. That would cost 20 years, a little bit more than that. They snap their fingers just like the hypnotist does at the end of his show. You're not a chicken anymore. And they snap their fingers, and all of a sudden it's okay to eat butter and eggs. It's called hypnosis. And that's what they do to you. They hypnotize you into believing the most dumbass things that could possibly be put forward, but yet you go for it. Because science suggests. Even that old jackass Japanese dude out there in the West Coast, Suzuki, at a talk at a university, I think it was in Seattle. I was reading one of the papers, or one of his papers, or the paper regarding his speech at the university, and this was quite some years ago. And even Suzuki, who's really not a scientist, how do you know about global warming? How do you know about the way the Earth operates when your only attachment to science is you sat at a table and stared at fruit flies? I mean, how the hell does that make you a scientist? It makes you, some kind of a guy that has a strange attachment to fruit flies, I guess. But even he said in that paper, or in that speech, that what you believe, or what science believes today, you will find out in about 20 years, is completely wrong. And that came out of the mouth of our Earth boy, David Suzuki, here in Canada. Even he said it, that what we tell you today, science, has a very real chance of being completely wrong in 20 years, proven to be completely wrong in 20 years. That's when they snap the fingers. Okay, we hypnotized you long enough. We got enough of these stupid drugs. Pharmaceutical industry made a lot of money. Okay, now you can go back to eating butter and eggs. People wonder why I have such a hard time with science. Well, just read everything and see how many times you see an expert suggest or science suggests. Just look for that word. And if you look up the origin of the word suggest, it's hypnotize. They're not telling you that the earth is going to warm by 2 degrees centigrade and all hell's going to break loose. They're suggesting that. And they suggest that you give up your automobiles. They suggest you don't use any water. They suggest you don't use any energy. They suggest you never use another fossil fuel in your life. And then you got the media running around doing all the propaganda work. You got your local councils having visions. Having visions. You ever been to a local council meeting? There ain't nobody bright enough in there to have a thought, let alone a vision. You know, what are they doing? Popping acid at the council meetings? You know, let's go have a vision. Got some really nice purple haze, man. Let's just go do that. Get a vision going. I got this vision that there should be no automobiles, only bicycles and sneakers. Yeah, that'll be our new vision. And we'll put that out. We'll call it Walk Wheel Windsor. Wow. WWW. Geez, that's like World War III. Coming to community that you're living in right now. Anyways, the city has launched an online survey to find out what encourages people to use active mobility options. And then the 10 people that write in, they're going to use that information to qualify their vision and start making it more and more difficult for you to get around in private transportation. We want to hear from all residents. And this is my favorite news site, the Communist Broadcasting News, of which we all pay for. We want to hear from all residents, comma, not matter how they move around. What the hell is that? You know, no matter how they move around. Not matter? Not matter? Antimatter. Ah, we're going to be flying. How they move around, whether it be on foot, wheelchair, or scooter, by car, transit, bicycle, or skateboard. Stated manager of transportation planning, Josette Eugenie. Walk Wheel Windsor will also be hosting community events throughout the spring to promote active transportation. The first event will be held at Earth Day celebration at Malden Park on Sunday, April the 22nd. Participants are eligible to, yes, to win prizes if they arrive without a car. You can't get a prize if you come to Earth Day in a car. But if you walk, skateboard, wheelchair, scooter, or bicycle, or walk, or come by transit, any way you can get there other than your personal transportation called a car, you could win a prize. And if you do show up in a car, the people will probably look down at you like the earth-killing dog you really are, you thoughtless, ignorant piece of garbage that would work to destroying the planet by coming there with your car. But this stuff's been going on for a long time. You know, they're narrowing the roads down. They're making it more and more difficult for people to get around in vehicles, in cars or pickups. Now, when I was a kid, we drove bicycles because that's what we had to get around on. And I don't know any kid, as he's approaching 16, isn't trying to figure out how to get his hands on a car, because a kid on a bicycle knows that it's slower to get around on a bicycle. And some people may challenge that. Depends where you're at. I mean, we used to, when I lived in Calgary, we used to bike. Found it much faster to use a bicycle at rush hour than be in a car. I mean, you could blow through Calgary real quick on a bicycle compared to the traffic in the cars. The only thing we had to worry about was getting doored. That was a problem sometimes. People opening doors in their cars, and you're hauling ass, and then the door opens. It kind of gets your attention. But it was much quicker. But then we didn't go on a bicycle path. We were agile enough to scoot through the traffic. We didn't need a little bicycle path. But they're narrowing the roads down with these bicycle paths. They're narrowing the roads down with the transit, and just making it more difficult for you to get around in a car. And it's not by accident. But they're spending lots of money, your money. Council gives green light to transportation study promoted by bike parking discussion. Councilors give okay to $350,000 transportation study. Now, if you go across this country or across the West and go to every town, city, and look at the amount of money that's being pulled out of your pockets to make you sustainable, well, you wouldn't be happy campers. In a surprise move, City Council gave the green light to the $350,000 transportation study. So they're inviting people to call in. I don't know who's getting all the cash. What began as discussions about a proposed update to a policy on bike rack infrastructure quickly shifted to talks about the needs of pedestrians, motorists, cyclists, and other transportation mode. When you take into consideration the discussion we have been having around council chamber the last couple of months before we start adjusting policies, we really need to have that active transportation study done, said Councillor Joanne. Council's policy on bike parking allows anyone to ask for new infrastructure in their neighborhoods or business improvement areas, but the cost of that infrastructure rests with the person or group requesting it. Any request for bike parking within the boundaries of a business improvement area must come from the board of the BIA, which will then have to pay for installation and maintenance of the infrastructure. Outside of the BIA, installation costs will be paid by the person requesting it, but maintenance costs will be covered by the city. Before making any changes to the city's policy, Gignac wanted to take a larger look at overall transportation issues. She's convinced her fellow councillors support the study, which will be paid for from reserve funds. Move comes well ahead of next year's budget discussions because Gignac wanted to avoid letting the transportation study compete with other major funding projects. But this thing has been going on all over the place, and we had I think it was the Winter Olympics over there in Pyongyang, in North Korea, and I encourage everyone to go and check out Pyongyang. I think that's what it's called, the main city in North Korea, and watch some videos of this place. Okay, watch some videos, and you will see your future. Okay. Very little use of private energies. Very little use, if any, of private transportation or vehicles, other than walking, biking, and taking public transit. The only vehicles you really see on the streets there, and they have beautiful streets. They're clean, they're wide, there's very little traffic on them, but all you see is government maintenance vehicles and police vehicles and the transit bus. Other than that, you don't see a lot of private vehicles on them big wide streets. So people have been looking at North Korea with the wrong mindset for a long, long time. They've been looking at North Korea like, oh, look at this guy who's look what he's doing to his people. They don't have they don't have the resources that we have. They don't have access to energy the way we do. They don't have private vehicles. They don't have private homes. What else is not sustainable? Private land, private property, because it's a form of social injustice. Hell, I didn't write it. I just read it. That's all the way from 1976. I mean, they planned this stuff out a long time. So, we had the Korean War and ended up with a split. South Korea is a manufacturing hub and very crowded, but urban. And North Korea is the exact opposite. And everybody's looking at North Korea with the wrong set of eyes, because North Korea, all of these things are just mechanisms they use to get where they want to get us to. That song "Masters of War" by Bob Dylan there. In one line, you build to destroy. So they don't really build anything. The people build it. The planners plan it. Then the people build it. And then when they want to move us, they destroy what we built and start again. And that's exactly what's going on. But we're not moving towards what you would say, because this North and South Korea got split. We're not moving towards, manufacturing and all this kind of stuff like South Korea did after the war. We're moving towards North Korea, which is where the whole world's moving to. You've seen stories in that of, if they fly over the world or they take a picture from outer space or whatever, and here's the world at night. And you can always pick out North Korea because it's dark. That's your future that they're trying to shove down your throat through suggestion. And you got to come to terms with that. They're lying to you. There's one thing, I don't know, anything else bugs me more about environmentalism than this nonsense of calling us here in Canada energy hogs and water hogs. If that doesn't piss you off, I don't know what would. Who is this that's telling you that you're a water and energy hog? And you don't get angry about it. You just buy, they suggest we use less water. Who's suggesting you use less water? Well, the scientists and our counselors and everybody. Well, I'm hereby inviting everyone to come to my town on Earth Day. I want everyone in Canada, all 36 million of you, to slide down to my little town on Lake Huron. And I want you all bring yourself a straw. Not one of them little skinny straws, but the bigger milkshake straws so you can pull more water. And I want you all to come to Lake Huron, one of the Great Lakes. And I want all 36 million of you on Earth Day to stick your faces or your straws into Lake Huron, and I want you to start sucking. And see how long it takes to empty the lake. Let me think. Never. Never, 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 never. That's one lake. And you people are running around freaking out about water. Like I said, there's that aquifer down there, and I use that as an example because it's brilliant. One aquifer on the border of Argentina and Paraguay. And if calculated, there's enough water in that one aquifer to provide every man, woman, and child on this planet with, I believe, is 100 liters of water per day for something like 200 years. And you're worried about water? I mean, come on. Read something, folks. Read something. Not what they're giving you to, like these people at the councils in Windsor with division statements and that. Don't worry about them. Okay? Go read some documents. And you'll be going, what the hell are these? If this is the documents, then what are these dicks telling us? Well, they're suggesting to you how they get you where the documents want to get you to. And that's basically a life like North Korea. Now, they say, the dictator of North Korea. Well, what do you think's running your country except dictators? And they're all pushing the same game. They're taking you back to the Dark Ages, where you got a bicycle. So we progress from walking to riding horses to the bicycle to the automobile, the motorcycle, the truck. And now they want to take you back. They'd be quite happy if all the main highways just turned back into fields. And that the only way you had to get anywhere, which is really one of the plans, is you either get on a light rail transit to go from town to town, city to city, or get around in your city. Well, what do we need roads for? We should tear up all the roads and plant food. Inner city farming, which is written down. But you will only go where they allow you to go. Gee, that sounds like, North Korea. So, I'm encouraging you folks to go, and I think it's called Pyongyang, or something like that. Anyways, go check out the city. Look at the massive roads and how big they are in that city and how freaking little traffic there are. You got your subways, your transit, your buses, and other than that, you walk, bike, wheelchair, scooter, skateboard, but you ain't going anywhere in your car because you ain't got one. Now, I have someone calling in from North Korea. This is brilliant. Have I got you?
You have me.
Yes, and you're from North Korea?
Yeah.
Oh, no, you're from Kingston, Ontario.
I'm from the land.
Which is starting to look a lot like North Korea.
No kidding. I'm from the land that has primary water. You ever looked into that, Ron?
Primary water.
Yeah, it comes from our earth.
No, nothing comes from the earth. No, we can't go there. You mean the earth is providing for us?
Well, you forget about all your lakes and your rivers. We have primary water that comes up through our core of the earth.
Yeah, same as oil.
Exactly.
Yeah, the earth produces
I mean, even though we have enough water on the surface that we could all stick straws into, there is still enough water, renewable water, that comes up through our Earth's core to sustain us.
Well, I mean, the little lake, I don't know how big that lake would be. I don't know, a few hundred acres. Then the same as the little lake we had where our cottage was, which was only about 5 acres, but it was 5 acres about, and it was 60 feet deep. And you know where the water was coming from? The springs. You know, the next lake over, which is a few hundred acres, you know, you go out there with a depth finder, and there's springs feeding that lake. That's the only place this water can come from. It's all being fed from underneath, from the earth. So yeah, I mean, that's the same as that aquifer I was talking about in Argentina, Paraguay. I mean, there's more water than you could possibly. Well, nobody could ever use all the water. Nobody. But that's why I don't understand how they convince people there's a water shortage. How do they do that? You're a smart guy. I mean, you live on the St. Lawrence River.
Yeah, I mean, if we get a heavy windstorm, we get floods here. We do.
Well, you got too much water.
Well.
Or too much wind.
Yeah, the wind is driving the water from the...
But for anyone in this country to think for a half a second that there's a shortage of water somewhere.
Well, they regulate the water levels. Like, you go up to the higher country, and then, you know, water runs downhill, in case you don't know. They have dams, and they regulate the dams. I mean, some of them, like Canoe Lake, for example, they have logs that they slide in to slow the water flow. And then when the water flow gets to the point where the lower lake is starting to shrink, they'll pull out a log.
Yeah.
Allow more water into the lake, the lower lake. I mean, this has been going on for millennium, but you see, like, I've seen it for myself. I know in certain areas I've seen water come up through the ground, and on higher ground, and there's videos on YouTube where you can watch this where people are trying to make the point. They say, "Look at, where is this water coming from? There's no water around us, and there's a stream, and it's all bubbling up from the ground, coming out and down." You know, this isn't discussed as much as it should be. That's for sure.
No, we just been suckered big time into believing nonsense, and you know, I see there's some more nonsense, and I really feel bad about this one. Apparently the police are feeling a little out of sorts. Because they're not really welcome at the gay pride parades anymore. I mean, the police were huge in pushing the gayness. I mean, my little town here, they had a picture of them all, the men. Where the hell did men go? The police officers wearing red high heels, right? And pulling up their pant legs a little bit. To promote the diversity of gender, and now because Black Lives Matter and the carding in Toronto and Black Lives Matter gets on the pride people, that they're being harassed by the police, and the police shouldn't be allowed to march in the pride parade, even though they were a big instigator of it. And now the police have their feelings hurt. It's like a bad cartoon that we're living in here. You know, like what the... I saw, did I tell you this? Did I say this on the last show? I ran into a cop at the corner store who, my wife's like 5'4.5" or something. And I'm about 6'4". And I'm looking at this young cop who is no taller than my wife. And I'm thinking, how did that happen? Like, how the hell did this happen? You know, you got these little wee women running around with a gun now. Who can take any of these people seriously? Right? Oh, I guess that's diversity, isn't it? What happened?
There's a video I just came across a couple of days ago. I don't know if I mentioned it on your show or not. I don't think I don't believe I have. It's a guy that teaches a new form of martial arts.
Uh-huh.
And it's a comedy. I mean, the guy, you know, he just does it for fun. He did this Conor McGregor throwing whatever. What was he throwing? Conor McGregor was throwing like shopping carts or something at a bus, and he shows you the defense, and it's a comedy. But he has on women, and the one video shows asking the female cop, like, you know, about passive restraint, and she says, well, I don't need to know hand-to-hand combat because I got my gun, and if my gun doesn't work, I got my taser. My taser doesn't work, I got my pepper spray, and if that doesn't work,
you got a billy club.
And if none of them work, well, then maybe I might need hand-to-hand combat. She said, but in all reality, all of them to fail at once isn't going to happen. And they made a comedy about it, but, you know.
Well, it's really quite pathetic.
Well, no, it's true. It's like they don't, you know, you can get a woman to do the job because.
Well, not really, because like the whole idea is when you have these people who are not suited for these jobs, what you end up with is more people getting hurt because they know they're not really big enough to do much to you. So they get nervous and they start shooting at people, right? A real cop doesn't do that. A real cop will just come in and say, you know, everybody chill out, right? What's going on here, right? They don't. What we've got is a bunch of Barney Fifes running around, you know. The guy with the, you know, remember Barney Fife? That's what these cops remind me of today. You know, overexcitable, which makes them dangerous, versus the old Andy Griffith kind of guy who walk in and go, what the hell's going on here? Oh, chill out, everybody. And everybody chill out, right? So they've elevated this, you've got fearful people running around with guns, and they are fearful because they're not that big, right? So, like you said about that comedy, well, I got my gun, and I got my pepper spray, and I got my taser, right? I don't have a high IQ, but I have all this shit that I can try to hurt you with, and if none of that works, right? Like, when I pulled that cop, when I put that cop off the road who gave me the ticket, and when I finally got her pushed off the road, and she jumped out of her car, she was scared to death. I mean, she was so afraid it was ridiculous. Her actions were lunacy. You know, run out in front of her car in a driveway, and she's got a gun. And, you know, she's completely freaking out because she's scared. You know, and I got to talk down the cop because I don't want the cop shooting at me. And, you know, just go like, what is your problem? Right? And just totally off the deep end. And then when I got home, of course, I phoned London police and told the sergeant he needs to have a chin wag with this lady because she ought not to be on the streets. Anyways, Chris, we're going to break if we haven't already in break because I don't got no music. I don't know what happens to this stuff. Can you stick around till after I go have a smoke because you hooked up a doctor and I saw you sent me some stuff last night. My computer was completely hung. I never did get to what you said. It took me like an hour to get my computer even to shut down. So can we talk about this doctor a little bit?
Sure.
Yeah? Okay, I'm going to go have a smoke. Stick with us, folks. I got Christopher from Kingston here. Great guy. And you're listening to Rock the Boat here on Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, also being simulcast over to ucy.tv. So we'll be back in a few minutes. Welcome back to the show. I'm your host, Ron Stevens. This is Rock the Boat Radio right here on freedomslips.com, Revolution Radio, and also UCY. And just before we get Chris back in here, I just want to remind everybody how important this is. Look around, find a donate button, reach in your pocket, and say there's 5, 10, 15, 20 bucks. Now, what was I going to do with that? Go buy some lottery tickets? Go buy an expensive coffee or two? Or do something useful with the money. And I suggest you do something useful with the money and find a donate button and donate what you can, because these networks on the internet are listener supported, and we got to get the word out. We got our countries to save. We got our people to wake up. And these networks are basically run on shoestring budgets. They don't have the printing presses like the World Bank and the IMF and the Fed to print whatever the hell they want to use for whatever they want, whenever they want, to push it into a mass psychosis and get to believing things that are absolutely not true. So, again, just go find the donate button, reach in your pocket, and look at that 20 bucks and think, I'm going to just blow this 20 bucks out on something that doesn't matter anyway. So just take it and donate it. It would much appreciated, because again, if you want your offspring to have any kind of a future other than North Korea, well, we're going to have to get active. And so that means these networks have to stay on the air. And if you're hearing something that makes sense to you, please promote the show. And so we'll get more listeners. It's all about seeing and knowing. Knowledge is power. And without knowledge, well, they can pretty much do whatever they want with you. And they have been. And we have to stop it. Anyways, Christopher. We still got him? Yeah. I hooked up with Simon.
Good.
And I haven't had a chance to talk to him because I've been having some serious computer problems over here. I'll do that today.
Friend. Is that who you're talking about?
I don't even know. Let me just go and see what you sent. I thought it was a doctor.
No, Dr. Mike Hurt. I send you too much stuff. You can't keep up with your guests.
Well, it's not that. It's just my computer. I was having all kinds of trouble even getting my computer to run. And then last night I was trying to download something, and I thought, well, I'll go read what you've been sending me. And everything just went solid lockup. And I had a bitch of a time getting into the work again. That's why I had to get off of Skype and a bunch of other stuff. No, I have a guy here who's Simon Harris.
Okay. Yeah,
right? That's the doctor, right?
I like what he has to say, and he's interested in getting together with you and discussing what you both do.
That's the doctor, right?
Nope. The doctor. I send you too much stuff. No, the doctor is from A Plain Truth. That's Mike Hart. That's the doctor, Dr. Mike Hart.
Okay, so Simon is the guy from South Africa?
No, Simon.
Simon
from South Africa is. You've already had him on your show. We should discuss this off air.
No, but Simon Harris, that's the guy from South Africa, right?
No. Oh, well, yeah. Well, he not the same.
Not the guy we had on the show. Not the guy we had on the show.
Correct. It's a different Simon.
But where's he from?
Boy, I'd have to look that up. I don't know.
Oh,
He may be from, I believe he's from South Australia, but I have to look that up, Ron. That's another one. I thought you were talking with somebody totally different. So I got that.
Well, I've been getting. I got a bunch of stuff from Kathy and a bunch of stuff from people out west, and I just got to keep getting flooded with stuff. And like I said, my computer's been hanging bad, so I've been having a hard time getting through all this stuff. So, but I do want to get the doctor on here because he has done his due diligence on the vaccine thing, if I'm correct.
That's the one. That's Mike Hurt.
Yeah. And got to get him on because, the funny part is, and this is the truth, people, and I don't know why it's like that, but until you have, I've noticed this over the years, this guy's a doctor, and you have all these researchers out here who've gone through the whole vaccination game since the beginning of it, and have it nailed tight, right? But until someone like a doctor tells you what the researchers have been telling you for years, it doesn't seem to resonate properly until a doctor comes up and says, hello, I'm a doctor, and everything that the research have been telling you is correct, right? It's a massive, dangerous fraud, and it's harming people. I watched a video of how I shut up my doctor, that he did, and everything is bang on, right?
Yeah, because he says that when you start talking about adjuvants and such, the doctors can debunk you and say, "Oh, that's been debunked," and blah blah. Yeah. So he says, "Okay, if we go that route, here's something else for you to consider." And the way he goes about it, that's why I want him on your show. The way he goes about it is like, they always got a way to try and shut you down. But he says there's more truth than the falsehoods that they give you in the mainstream media. And the way to attack them back is to do it, to have a lot of tools in your chest. So if you can't argue one point with them and they don't want to listen, you got another one. And here it is, and that's why I like the guy.
He seems dedicated.
Well, that's what I like.
And the part in that video there where I'm pretty sure that's the same video. The part in there where they had the lab rats or the mice or whatever, and they were shooting them up with the vaccines, and then they checked their brains, and they're scattered, right? Brains are completely scattered. Now, you look at the people today that have been getting vaccinated for the last 20 years, walking down the street, texting, totally oblivious to anything that's going on around them. These people's brains are scattered. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. They can't carry on an intelligent conversation. They don't know anything. They don't want to know anything. They have difficulty understanding things. And, the idea is they're not going to hit you with one vaccine that's going to screw you up. I mean, the idea is to hit you with enough vaccines that somewhere down the road you get screwed up, and then you can't trace it back to a particular incident, right? It's just, it's like the doctors. I read that book from 1902 or whenever it was, and the doctors they wrote a letter to the president and of the United States, and they just referred to the vaccines as blood murder, right? So now I don't know. Do you have any idea? Like, you've got some kids. You got any idea how many vaccinations these guys getting?
In my own personal family, no, because I'm the only one that is against them. For the adults giving to my children and my family's children. So they know not to tell me.
I hear you. Don't tell Chris.
My own children tell me that they're not getting them anymore. Now, have they been programmed by their mother to say that? I don't know.
Well, I just noticed in Windsor or London or Hamilton, one of them places. They just, and this was a high school, they just said you can't come to school because I think there was 400 of them in that town or whatever, that their vaccinations weren't up to date, and they just get notified that you can't come to school until such time you're up to date, and which gets the parents all in a knot because they don't know what to do with the kids because they're busy working, and so then it's almost like they're getting the parents to force the vaccinations on the kids because the parents don't have the time, the money, or anything else to deal with the kids. So, I've heard numbers anywhere from 30 to 60 some odd vaccinations from the time a kid's born till they're 18 years old. Like they're junkies. That's a lot of needles. And each of those needles have the adjuvants that are in there that are going to mess with you. You destroy your immune system is what they're trying to do to you, is destroy the immune system you were born with. You're supposed to get the measles. You're supposed to get the chicken pox. You're supposed to get the mumps. Because each of those things make you stronger. That's these childhood diseases. They make you stronger. So they whack you with vaccinations, which in turn make you weaker because your body is not fighting off these infections or whatever you want to call them. Because each time you have to fight off an infection, if you fight it off, you're stronger for it. You improve your immune system by getting sick once in a while. But they know better somehow, But no, I feel bad for all those people. So I got to get a hold of him and get this set up so we can get him on the show, because it's always nice when you have a doctor. It's the same as when I had that teacher from Ottawa, who wrote back after the day after they did the show or something, and he was scared to death. But after he did the show, he says, "Okay, I made a decision. I'm not lying to the children anymore." Well, that's huge. Now, if we could get all the teachers to get to that point, we would have proper curriculum in the schools. We wouldn't be teaching kids the garbage they're being taught. We would teach them real history. We would teach them, how to deal with each other in their own neighborhoods. We'd teach them to be more independent, which goes totally against the grain of what's being taught in the school systems.
Well, here's the thing with the vaccinations. Growing up, every time I was in a motorcycle accident or in a fist fight, and I hate to say it, but sometimes I had to go to the hospital. Have you had your tetanus shot lately? Because you're all done your needles, right? They pumped in all they can, so to the average person, not to me, but because it's standard. They'll say, "Have you had your tetanus shot within the last 5 years?" No. Oh, okay, well, we better give you one just in case. So, even though you're supposedly having all of your shots that are going to protect you from the world, just in case every 5 years we're going to give you this one because it only lasts 5 years, so you need it every 5 years, so give me a vein.
Well, yeah, but when I found out
you know what I'm saying? Like
when I got, last time.
Isn't that from World War I when they were like hanging around dead horses?
Right, exactly. Like last time I went to the hospital was to get a hook out of it wasn't just in my finger. I could have ripped my finger loose, but it was in the hard part in between the joints in your finger. And I'd be damned if I could rip that out or get it out anyway. So I went to the hospital and he had no problem getting it out, and it was really slick. But then they chased me around for a tetanus shot. And you go, "I just came to get a hook out of my finger," right? "Well, you got to have a tetanus shot." "Why?" and they got all freaked out about it. And then they offered me the combo. I could get whooping cough and a tetanus shot in one shot. And when I told them I didn't come for a needle, they got really freaky. They wanted me to sign a paper saying that if I died of tetanus, that they wouldn't be responsible. But this goes back to your doctor, the vaccine doctor, about how little doctors actually know, right? Like everybody else, they just get told shit, they believe it, they don't question it. Because I was talking to a lady about tetanus, and she says that's the biggest scam, the tetanus shot, because you don't get tetanus from a rusty nail, okay? Tetanus came from the gut of horses. So, yeah, people were dying of tetanus all over the place because they're in a war, like you said, World War I or wherever you got horses. And the horses are getting shot and blown up, and you're cut up, and you're laying in the ground there with all this horse gut crap all over the place, and it gets into your cut, you get tetanus. But when she told me that the tetanus comes from the gut of a horse, well, all of a sudden, why the hell is everybody getting tetanus shots? And then, like you said, you got to get them, every 5 years? It makes no sense. But the doctors don't seem to know that, unless they're getting kickbacks. So, no, I'm going to be very interested to have this guy on the show. Never had the doctor on the show before. I had teachers and lawyers and politicians and stuff, but never a doctor. So this will be good.
You know, it'd be good is to have, some may disagree, but it'd be good to have Dr. Carley back on your show with him.
That's not a bad idea. Yeah. Is she even doing shows anymore?
She doesn't do, well, she'll do a guest appearance.
Will she? So I feel really bad for that lady. There's a lady that came out early, and we know what they do when you speak the truth, right? They come down on you like a ton of bricks, and they basically did what they've done to us too, is destroy our lives, or do the best job they can of it. And she was a tough little cookie, and put up with an awful lot of harassment. And I hope she's doing okay. But yeah, we should do that.
I found the other guest that is willing to be on your show, Simon Harris. Now, he's out of Britain, actually.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he talks about the Frankfurt School. He's going to be a very interesting guest. And I actually sent you a copy of the email that he sent me, and I gave him your information.
Yeah, well, we hooked up.
He's got 11,000 subscribers, and I like what the guy has to say, and I just wanted to get you guys in touch, and I thought it'd be cool to do it on a show.
Well, that's good, because if he's if he's well versed in the Frankfurt School, which an awful lot of people aren't, this is all about knowledge again, and knowledge is power, and people don't have a lot of this knowledge. And if he's well versed in the Frankfurt School, then yeah, we got to get him on. Be some good shows. But anyways, I'm just gonna you just talk for a minute. I want to go look up a story here, if I can find it, out of Hamilton, Ontario.
Well, the theological understanding is based on Jewish propaganda.
On what?
The theological understanding is based on Jewish propaganda. Like your Bible was written by the Jews. Jesus was from the north. of the Israelites. And Greece was orthodoxy. There was a return to Jewah to meet Jesus. I mean, if you want to get biblical, you can get into all that. He doesn't get into that. That's just me talking. But, I mean, you've been set up for a kill since, millennial. And he exposes it. Like, he shows how it's worked. It's sent about 2,000 years ago to now, and we're still being ruled by the same influence, which is Jewish. And they
think the Jews have something to do with it?
A little bit.
Just a tiny bit, eh?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we've been so screwed over for so long. Anyway, I'm just trying to figure who they arrested here. So I guess remember that they had a march in Hamilton, Ontario. Was it last weekend or the weekend before? Where they had these what they call white supremacists or patriots, and that going to march, and then Antifa, of course, shows up, and the only one that got arrested, apparently, there were no arrests. Maybe I got this story messed up. Well, I guess this is when they marched down the street at night and were busting the windows out of the stores. Hamilton police said tips from the public and electronic evidence helped identify Hopperton. And Friday they arrested the local anarchist Peter Hopperton in connection with the vandalism on Locke Street last month. Was identified by police as an operator of the local anti-anarchist collective, The Tower. He has also previously been arrested in connection with a variety of political protest actions, including the G20 protests in Toronto. 30 people dressed in, March 3rd, 30 people dressed in black with their faces covered, setting off fireworks and busting out windows, and so on and so forth. So I'm trying to figure out who this guy is, The Tower. Is that the white supremacist, or is that the Antifa group? I thought this story's a little more screwed up than I thought it was. I'll have to work that through, because it seems to me that I would think this guy's probably what they would classify as a white supremacist or something, because if he was protesting at the G20, he wouldn't have been Antifa. They weren't around then. So the point being is that the people who the police are going after, they call them anarchists, but in reality, most of these groups are nationalists. And if you were protesting at the G20, you were probably a nationalist. And we have to get the name nationalist back in the good books. And people in this country have to quit being afraid of nationalists. Those are the people that are looking out for your butt. They're the ones that care about your country. They're the ones that care about the future of your children. And every time somebody's labeled as a nationalist, then the general public population automatically jumps on the white supremacist Nazi bandwagon, which really, really bothers me. Because it bothers me because you messed up. But this story, you sent me this story, I think, about the Syrian family living a good life in Surrey.
Yep.
Now, we know for a fact.
House.
We we know for a fact that the number of white homeless is growing exponentially in this country. The number of white people who are fighting to keep a roof over their heads is growing exponentially. And here we have this Syrian family are living the good life in Surrey, and they're bringing in somewhere around $6,000 a month. Nobody works, right? They got 8 kids, 1 on the way. Mother can't work because she's got diabetes and she keeps getting pregnant all the time. She's apparently on disability. The father can't speak English. He's having a hard time getting a job. But they managed to rent a place at $2,500 a month plus $500 or $2,000 a month plus $500 in utilities. So that's that plus the $3,600 or whatever it is for the children. But it all works out to the tax child benefit $3,500 a month. And nobody's working. Meanwhile, we got vets living in trucks under bridges, and people have been laid off from their jobs. Old people on pensions who are barely surviving, and we import these people. And this one family's hauling in around $6,000 a month, somewhere in that neighborhood, and living a pretty
2 years.
What's that?
They've been doing it for 2 years now, and continuing.
Yeah.
And who's paying for it? The guy living under the freaking bridge.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, I saw a story that over Easter weekend, 500 people illegals came across the border. We're in Quebec or somewhere. And
they had in one day they had 400 cross the border.
Oh, in one day.
Like last Thursday
Really?
or Friday, they had 400 illegals cross the border.
Just walk across the border.
Yeah. Well, the RCMP's there to grab their baggage for them and take them to their hotel room and give them a check until they can, give them subsidized housing that people have been waiting 5 years for that live in this country. Yeah. And I mean, they're even starting to ask questions there, finally. Somebody's saying, wait a minute.
Well, this is off the deep end.
Something we should be doing about this? Really? I don't know. I guess.
Here's a guy that's in some of these comments on that story. He says, I have fallen on hard times, and I get $350 a month to live on from services, government services. Been working 20 years, and full-time, etc., and now this, right? $4,700 a month of my tax dollars. Are you freaking serious? This guy has no job and is expecting an 8th kid. Thanks for leeching off of us. Actually, it's $5,900. They didn't mention the wife's disability check of $1,200. Yeah, so they're making just close to $6,000 a month. Now, and nobody's working, right? Nobody's working. It's absolutely nuts. I don't know what it takes for Canadians to say, wait a minute, hold the phone here. You know, my neighbor's a pensioner who can barely make it, and these people show up out of nowhere, and are bringing in close to $6,000 a month, and nobody's working. How is that possible? Nobody ever worked, you know. But when we were on the, Canadian, Well, we were living on the West Coast back in the 70s. That's when they just were bringing in boatloads of East Indians and Sikhs. And when I was talking to some of these people, well, I mean, what they were doing, you had to be in the country for 5 years at that time. Now it's, what, a day and a half and you're a citizen and you can vote. But yeah, it was back then, it was, you had to be here for 5 years. So these people coming in from India and that, they were bringing their grandparents or their parents who were elderly with them and hold them here for 5 years. And once they were citizens, as soon as they became citizens, they went back to India with the pension check. So those people, as soon as they hit 65 and have been in here for 5 years, they're gone home. And the pension check goes with you wherever you are. You don't have to be in Canada to get the pension check. Once you've qualified, it follows you. So if you think of just the amount of money being sucked out of your pockets that isn't even being used in the economy here, is being sucked out and used in somebody else's economy, people should be just freaking livid.
There's a site that talks about reparations for blacks in America. And there is a suggestion that they should be paid $20,000 each for all the harms that have been caused by the white European blood Americans that have made their lives miserable 200 years ago, apparently.
Well, I thought the Jews were the slave trade.
Well, but I mean, this site, that's what they discuss. They discuss that. But I'm saying that there is a legitimate suggestion that each American has to chip in on paying each African American $20,000 each per head for reparations, kind of like the Jews with the Holocaust. And
yeah.
Now it goes upwards of $100,000. And the guy suggests, he said $20,000. He said people just won't understand that because they don't come out with them numbers to you individually. They just, they give a number of like $1 trillion. He said, but now if they come up with $100,000 per house, he said, now you're talking, 10 trillion. He said, people might say no. He said, but they might get away with 20,000. He said, and that really scares me. And that was another video I watched, and it was, I got to get more into that to understand what that entails, or whether that will come to fruition, and or whether people will actually accept it even at $20,000 per family to pay reparations to poor black people that suffered 200 years ago. And
how is anybody alive today responsible for something that happened 2 years ago, or 20 years, or 200 years ago? You're not. Well,
no, this is legit. I mean, there's suggestions out there that's what they want, and there's consideration being taken to accommodate. So you're basically paying for your own demise.
Well, that's what you're doing. You're paying for your own friggin' demise. And we got to get around that. We got to get by that. There's some really ugly... here's Eileen on this family in Surrey says, the money should be going to our veterans. And these people are making more than Canadians do on Canada Pension Plan, an old age pension after we worked all our lives, and it's our money they're giving away. They also have not been screened properly for diseases, and now we will have to pay and deal with that fiasco also. Wake up, Canada. And this is people get this to a point and then they screw up. Like Eileen says, okay, wake up Canada, ... Trudeau brought them in for one reason only, to have their votes. No, that's not true. Right? This is where the political messes these people up. You know, all of this that's going on now is all being blamed on Trudeau. And this all started a very long time before Trudeau ever showed up. He just happens to be the present guy dancing in the window for your entertainment and for you to shoot barbs at. But what has Trudeau got to do with agreements that were signed at the UN back in the 50s? You know, nothing. You know, the agreement says that we have to open our borders to migrants. So we open our border to migrants. You know, we have to teach children early sex ed. All of this stuff comes out of the UN. You know, do you think that we here, you know, all you got to do is ask yourself, where's all this weird shit coming from? Well, it ain't coming from your politicians because they're not that bright. And why would they implement that stuff? It's all coming out of those UN agreements, and the only hope for this nation or any other nation is to cut all ties with the United Nations. You know, every United Nations worker and every United Nations supporter ought to have one of those signs we used to put on each other's backs when we were young in school, which you can't do anymore. You know, the old kick me sign. You know, only this time it should be kick me out of your country sign, and be on all their backs. You know, we just keep kicking them until they are out of here. All of this nonsense about you know, the liberals being the bad guy. They're all the same people. They're all come out of the same stable. They're all qualified for what they do. They're handpicked. You know, it's no different than the hockey scouts hanging out in the schools, from the grade schools to the universities, looking for who can do the job for them. So, you know, there's a lot of, I mean, I don't know how many comments are on that story you sent, but it looks like a hell of a pile of them. And most of these people are very, very angry about what's going on here. But the
left-right paradigm, you know, like, I go back to when I was younger, and the reason I like, there's a musical band, and I'm sure everybody's familiar with it, called Pink Floyd. You know, when they did The Wall, I was into Pink Floyd long before that. The Wall I thought was kind of boring, but the more I listened to it, and then they came out with the videos, I appreciated what was being said. You know, they always demonize Hitler, and then they use the goose stomp, and then they go left, right, left, right, left, right, left, right. I mean, they're going together, but and
yep.
Just people could only wake up and understand that and say, you know, it's you gotta get in there and do something.
Yeah, it's just the right left marching, you know, where you don't want to end up at, and we have to get around that.
I'm confused, Ron. I don't know about you, but I mean, we're not only talking left and right. You're talking far right, far left, alternative right, alternative left.
Well, it's all the same thing.
I'm left of central. I'm right of central.
Yeah, what is that shit? I saw a video the other night. Some girl, excuse me, who went to university or still is in university. No wonder these people have mental issues. She was absolutely convinced she was a leftist, right? But now she's not. But she realized what the leftists were doing. So I know even though she promoted all their nonsense for so long, she's come to the realization she's not a leftist. Okay, what are you? Well, now this is where the confusion kicks in. She's not sure. She knows she's not an alt-right, although she could have been an alt-left at one time. But she's not an alt-left now, but she can't see herself being an alt-right. She's thinking maybe a right of left center, or maybe a left of right center. And she's rambling on, right? Like get your freaking feet on the ground, get your head straightened out. They got these people so confused that they're sitting around trying to figure out what the hell they are.
Yeah, how far right or how far left?
Right.
How far center?
Right. Yeah. Try being a man or a woman. Try that. Okay? Just try that. And try understanding what's going on. You don't have to forget the right, forget the left, forget the alts. What would a man do in this situation, a moral man or a moral woman? They wouldn't be tangled up. Can you imagine your grandfather or grandmother or you know how they used to, the guys that talk politics or whatever, and your grandfathers or whatever, and you're sitting there as a kid listening to this stuff. Can you imagine your grandfathers and grandmothers sitting around in the living room or what, talking about trying to decide who's alt-right or alt-left or center of or right of or all this kind of stuff? Here's your whole family sitting in there discussing everything, and your family is completely and totally divided. You can't come to terms with any of this stuff, and that's all they've done. They've just made it to the point where people are trying to qualify what it is they are, instead of just looking at the big picture and saying, wait a minute. Our country's being torn asunder, and we're all here, and we're arguing the most ridiculous stuff that makes no sense, and we're caught up in it. So that's what they did to you, so that you can't get your feet on the ground. Your head's up in the air somewhere, trying to figure out all this nonsense been jammed into it. You can't get your feet on the ground. You can't stand firm up against what's running over you, which is the alt-right, the alt-left, the left to right, the right to left, all the same players. And I wouldn't be surprised if it was set up by the J people, because they're supposed to be tricksters, right? Sneaky buggers, manipulators. And how we allowed ourselves to get sucked into this nonsense. But I wish I had knew where the clip was. I put it in the chats, because to listen to this young lady trying to explain her position, and at the end, she just kind of stopped, and I'm confused. Well, yeah, you and everybody else that's going to university is completely and totally confused. You have no clue. None. And these are the people that are supposed to run the country in the future? Not good. Not good at all. And again, I don't have a problem with people in general. Like if you want to come to this country, then there's just a few prerequisites. Do you speak the language? No, then you ain't coming in. Go learn the language, then we'll talk. Okay, do you plan on integrating into our society, in other words, becoming part of the society and promoting the society that's already here? Oh no, we want to stay in our own little tribes. See ya. Okay, and what are you going to give to the country? Well, nothing. We just heard we could get free money. See ya. I don't have a problem with. I mean, I don't have a problem with somebody that wants to come here, who understands you play by the rules. We don't change our rules to benefit you. Okay? You change your rules to move into our house. You want to move into our house, it's our rules. We don't change our house rules to accommodate you. Ever. Now, if I go to your country and I wander into your country, be it Afghanistan or Syria or wherever the hell it is, and I say, oh, hey, I'm from Canada. That's nice. You know how to speak our language? No. Well, how are you going to work? I wasn't planning on it. Well, but you're going to integrate. You will become a Syrian. Oh, hell no. No, I don't want to do that. Do you think they're going to let you in their country? Not a chance. Not a chance in hell. Yet here we are. I mean, I will never get this thing out of my head, Chris. Ever. 122 different languages spoken in the city of Toronto or Greater Toronto?
Right.
How the hell do you communicate down there?
You see, what people misunderstand is when they come up with the term first world, second world, third world countries, we built this land into a first world country. And we've got people coming in now that will not integrate, will not assimilate in any way whatsoever, and they want us to bow down to their the way they live, and that goes back to the Clarity Plan, does it not?
Yes, it does.
They want us, we gotta conform and level the water, so to speak. So we've got to be like Syria is, or
we're going to be anything but what we are. That's what we are is not acceptable, and we are going to have to change our ways to their ways.
Keep it all fair. We got to live like they do in Ethiopia, and then it's all.
Oh yeah.
Then we're all equal.
Well, that's the big equalization, eh? Race to the bottom. Like my friend Paul, he freaked right out when I told him about Alberta, where the Sikhs in Alberta are not going to have to wear a motorcycle helmet. But everybody else does. So if I'm a Sikh, I don't need a helmet. I don't get a ticket. If I get pulled over and they say, well, you're not wearing a helmet, that's against the law. Well, it might be against your law, but it ain't against our law. We don't have to wear helmets because of our religion. And Paul says, what the hell are you talking about? I said, hey, that's the way it is, right? And, if I'm a Sikh, I get to carry a concealed weapon, i.e. a dagger, and I don't need a motorcycle helmet.
Can you imagine you or I going into a freaking school with a sword?
I know.
You'd be shot on the spot. Imagine in the States. Holy crap.
Well, actually.
Right in the center.
But anyways, Paul says, well, that's fine. I'm now a Sikh, right? I'll be a Sikh. I'll just put a towel on my head, get on the bike, and said you're probably better off to be a transgendered Sikh or a gender-neutral Sikh because then you probably get away with it. I mean, yeah. I mean, it's so bizarre now. It's off the top. We have no rights, but you come to this country from your country, and all of a sudden you don't have to follow our laws. Well, no, because our religion says we can do this, but you're not in your country. Well, yeah, but it follows us anywhere we want, right? But then we go back to Michael Schmidt with the milk. And, I told them when they were in court on the injunction, push the religious thing, right? Okay. If your people, you deliver the milk in North York, wherever they take the milk to, was going to a church. That's where the milk pickup was. So if you can ride a motorcycle without a helmet because you're a Sikh, then you should be able to drink milk on your religious basis. And up here, we've got a huge Mennonite communities up here. They came in and bought up all the farms a long time ago because they don't have to go to the bank. They got their own banking system where a farmer buys a farm. He's got a 20, 30-year mortgage where the Mennonites have a 100-year mortgage, which makes that's one of the reasons the farm prices started going up was because they put their mortgage over 100 years, so their payments are lower, so they can actually pay more for a farm. That's when they were buying up the farms. Anyways, this guy, he's in court in Owen Sound, Ontario, and he had a fire at his house, and they charged him for not having a smoke detector and a carbon detector or whatever. And so he's in court, and he's telling them, well, I don't use that stuff because we believe in a higher power, and the higher power decides on our health and on our safety and everything else. And so we don't use smoke detectors. But see, it was bylawed so that everybody has to have a smoke detector. So the court, instead of giving this guy a ticket for not having a smoke detector, and instead of saying that they don't recognize their religious rights, we had a time already? Holy
intelligent
crap.
radio
Anyways,
for
we're out of time.
intelligent
Thanks,
people.
Chris, for calling in.
UCY.TV.
And we'll be back Tuesday night. Take care, everybody. Have a good day.